What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York, and on the phone we got Vicky from The Agonist. Thank you so much for your time today, Vicky.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course, it's so awesome to have you here. I was just listening to the new record, Orphans. It's absolutely awesome. Do you just want to talk about how the making of this record was and the recording for it and all that?
Sure. It's really very simple. Like, this album was probably the easiest album for us. It was, like, super smooth. I mean, the way we did the songwriting is kind of like the way we always do it from now on, where Danny starts writing the tracks. He's like the main songwriter, and he'll like send out that track to us, and everyone will kind of like do their own part. You know, like Simon will tweak his drums, and then I'll come in and like add the vocals and the lyrics, and then once that stage is done, maybe we'll make like some changes based off the vocals. But then, you know, demos are done, and we'll hit the studio. We did it with Chris Donaldson this time, who's done all of our albums except from 5. We hit the studio, and it was just, like, really smooth. Everyone was ahead of schedule, so, like, that gave him more time to focus on mixing the album, and Orphans was done.
Awesome. So you kind of mentioned that like you had like a formula in your songwriting process. Do you like take a new approach? Like, could this be considered a follow-up to your previous record, or do you think that this record kind of stands out a little bit more in the catalog?
I think it's like really different, obviously, from 5. Like, we kind of decided to go towards a different direction, like go heavier, go darker, you know, intricate, controlled chaos sort of type of songwriting, which was really like interesting for me. Like the way I songwrite is the same regardless. Like, I'll hear a song, I'll listen to the song a couple times, and I'll try to like get into the mood. Like, what feelings am I getting from this song, and what emotion, and what should the lyrics be about, you know? And then I think of a theme that can embody that sort of emotion and put it on the song.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was really interesting doing it for Orphans because there's so much going on in the music that there's moments where, like, I contribute to that chaos, but there's also moments where, like, you got to let the song breathe and just do something simpler as a vocalist. Like, don't confuse it too much, you know? So it was, like, very interesting for me in that it was a bit more challenging, but at the same time, it wasn't difficult. Like, yes, it was challenging, but it was actually kind of easy for me to do. And then hearing, like, the demos, I was, like, very, very proud because it was definitely, like, new territory for me, and I think I did my job pretty well.
Awesome. What I was curious about is when you came into The Agonist, were you like looking at the earlier works and kind of like adjusting your vocal style to that, or did the band kind of want you to completely like bring in a little bit of your own mix to the live presence and the songwriting?
Yeah, it's definitely the second. And the thing is, like, I was doing vocal covers at the time on YouTube when they found me, and I think that's what they liked about me. Like, they liked my voice for what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And they definitely took a huge leap of faith with me because at the time I had only been streaming for like 6 months, and I had like 2 YouTube covers with like streams in them, and they weren't honestly that great. They were pretty bad. Like, I can't listen to that stuff anymore. But they definitely took a leap of faith because, you know, they were more focused on the way I was singing. And that's definitely where I had, like, more experience. And they were, like, really excited that I could bring in more, you know, more to the table on the singing aspect, and that, like, I'll learn how to scream, you know, which I've been doing. I think from album to album, it's been getting better and better. But where was I going with this?
You were on the right track.
Yes. Oh, yes. And then, as far as I'm, like, from my perspective, I didn't really know who The Agonist was at the time. Like, I had seen, like, maybe, like, 1 or 2 singles on YouTube, you know, through related videos and stuff. So when I was contacted, like, I did go and listen to, like, previous material, like you mentioned, but not to see the vocal style at all. I was like more focused on what the instruments were doing, and just to get a feel for it and see like, is this something that I like? Is this something that I can work with in the future? You know, and it felt really cool. I really liked how they were like sort of proggy at times, and then like moody at other times, and all that. And I'm like, this is interesting. Like, I want to do this, you know. And I really didn't focus at all on the vocals because, you know, at the end of the day, I want to be me. I want to do something that is 100% me, not someone else, you know.
Very interesting. As a vocalist, because, you know, you mentioned like this, there's screaming and singing, and, you know, having many different usages of your voice. Like, it's one thing to be like a all clean singing vocalist who kind of has their own thing, or an all screaming vocalist who has their own thing. I'd imagine that it's a completely different strategy and a completely different almost state of mind depending on the usage of your voice, right?
Yeah. The thing is that, you know, a lot of singing or screaming techniques, some of them have like similarities in terms of like placement of the voice and like the resonance and like how much air you're using or how much you're supporting or all that. But then like there's other techniques that are like complete opposites. So like the more you get into like trying to be like versatile and adapting to like all these different techniques and placements and all that, it can kind of be like a mind fuck sometimes, that like you're going from like a vocal that's like, let's say, super demanding and harsh on your vocal cords, and then the next second you're going into something that's like super maybe soft and like chill and whatever. So a lot of it is just about I don't know, maybe like just having the maturity in your mindset to be able to be focused and do your job right. Because it's not hard to switch, you know, from one to the other. Like, if you know how to do one and you know how to do the other, it's easy to switch. But it's more just like, especially when you're performing live, like, be focused and be like, okay, this is a demanding part. I can't be running around the stage, you know. Or this part's fairly easy, so I could headbang, I could do this, you know, I could do that, whatever. So it's all about just finding that balance and rhythm, I think.
Totally. In addition, though, to having different styles, there's also lyrics that come into play as well. Do you need to hear music in order to come up with lyrics, or is there a time where maybe you have like a story or a concept in mind and maybe the band can write like according to that?
So it has happened like in the past where like I got inspired by something and I wrote random lyrics, you know, not to a song. But then like usually I'll take those lyrics and see if they do fit one of the songs that I've been sent, you know, the instrumentals. We've never done the write music to lyrics sort of thing before.
Okay.
But majority of the times I do just listen to the song and get inspired from the song and write the lyrics like right then and there, you know. It's very few moments that I'll sit down to write lyrics without music in mind.
Yeah, nothing could be more heartbreaking than having like the perfect set of lyrics too and seeing how they go like one syllable over like the whole arrangement or something like that, and you have to scrap it. I'd imagine that that's happened before.
Yeah, and there's been times where like I had these lyrics that I wrote and I really, really liked them, and certain parts fit to the song perfectly and other parts didn't, and I just had to throw out those parts. And it's like, you know, it's for the greater good because you're putting your lyrics out there, but once you're like used to seeing things in a certain way, sometimes it might be hard to shift from that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, as long as like you're able to do it, I think it's best to just write to a song, you know?
Of course. Do you like to leave your lyrics open to interpretation, or are you trying to maybe get a listener to sort of see things from your point of view and engage them in what you sing about?
I think I like doing like a bit of both. So like when I'm writing lyrics, sometimes I'll like use a specific story or book or, you know, experience that I had or whatever to kind of, you know, put that emotion out, but then I won't make it super specific so that, like, you know, someone that has no idea, like, never saw this movie or never read this book, can still kind of get something from the lyrics. And I think it's been working because, like, it has happened many times where, like, either an interviewer or a fan will be like, hey, I was listening to this song and I saw the lyrics to the song, and they're like, are you talking about this? And I'm like, no, but I can totally see why, you know, how you got that association there. So I do love doing that where, you know, anyone can sort of relate and apply those lyrics from their own personal experiences, because, you know, words are very powerful, and in the right context and put out in the right way, they can really, really touch someone and make them feel something really strong where, like, the music alone can't do it. It needs the right wording, you know, and it's really good to put that importance, you know, on the lyrics and be able to reach people in that way, you know.
Yeah, I think when you have the great music, that's good. You have the great vocals to go over it, that's better. But if you have the great lyrics, that's kind of like the icing on the cake. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like the trifecta, I guess. You need all three.
Exactly. I've heard plenty of songs where, like, it sounds amazing, but, like, the lyrics are so cheesy or so shallow, it just, like, ruins it. It's like the ultimate buzzkill.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I feel like the challenge sometimes, too, as a lyricist, where, like, well, I can't use that line or that word because I used it in a different song, you know, but I think as long as the story in your head behind it is different, of course you can use, like, the same words and, like, in a different context, because, like, at the end of the day, to have that impact, too, you got to be using, like, everyday things that people would say and they can catch on and pick up on, you know. You're not going to use, like, I don't know, super dictionary words that people don't understand, because how can they connect to that, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's all about what's behind those words, like the story needs to be powerful.
And there's so many angles to approach it. It could be very direct or very metaphorical. And I feel like with a lot of the lyrics you've wrote, you've kind of approached that from many different angles as well. Like, there's multiple sources of inspiration.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely do try to do, like, what matches the music more in that moment. And sometimes, like, the direct approach is what it needs. Like, if it's like a heavy riff and it has this, like, fuck you attitude, you know. But then if it's like a more melodic, like, sort of travel-y part, that's where you can sort of throw imagery in there and metaphors and stuff like that. So it's all just about doing what's best for the song.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you actually is, you kind of mentioned it before earlier, but being, you know, you were doing YouTube covers before you joined the Agonist. I'd imagine, because, you know, you're doing YouTube covers, you were by yourself in your own, like, element, but then you're playing with 4 other people. I'd imagine that, like, if you were to go back to doing YouTube covers as well, that working with 4 other very talented musicians could have also have helped you as a vocalist and maybe even taught you some newer things, right?
Yeah, I mean, actually, like, I did do vocal covers, and I actually started doing them again recently. There's, like, it's very easy when you just find a track online that's, like, the exact copy of the original and just doesn't have vocals, and then you can just put your vocals over it, you know, like, I think that's the number one reason I did it. It was the efficiency of it. Like, you're not relying on anyone else. You have the track, you put your vocals on the track, and it's like, it's done, you know. But I think there's a lot of obstacles in that too. Like, a lot of times, like, the way my brain works, I'll hear a song and I'll want to tweak that music and actually make it into, like, a full cover, not just, like, change the vocals. But obviously, like, you need musicians for that, and it does become this, like, long process, because suddenly you're working with, like you said, another 4 people, and everyone has their own sort of pace that they go about things, or, like, say they have a day job and it's taking away from their time in music, and, you know, they can't be super fast about it. So, like, suddenly something that could have taken you a week takes you, like, a month. But it's those challenges and that, like, communication with other people that sort of, you know, teaches you things and makes you grow as an artist. And also, like, the fact that you have, like, no limitations at the end. You can just take the track and do whatever the hell you want with it, you know. So there's a beauty in that, of course. And I think it's important for everyone to learn how to be in a band and how to communicate with other people.
Yeah, it's not just knowing how to play your instrument or do your part. It's also the process of collaborating with four other people or three other, if you're in Slipknot, eight other people. So it's definitely it's definitely as much of a social skill as it is a technical instrumental skill.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Sorry.
Oh no, you were saying that.
Oh, just to close that like, especially if we're talking about the band that you're in, that like after a couple of years, it's just like a family, you know. Like, and you'll get into these arguments, of course, because not everyone sees eye to eye, but you got to know how to like communicate as an adult and get through those issues and make decisions and, you know, move forward.
Of course. I have two more questions for you, if that's cool. With songwriting, I just recently started asking artists this because sometimes musicians, they like to be with their band when they're in the songwriting process because it's collaborative, but sometimes it's easier for a musician to come up with ideas when they're like alone. I mean, isolation is probably the best weapon, I would say, for heavy metal music. Do you find it easier to sort of bring elements to the Agonist when you're like alone in your own thoughts and your own element and atmosphere, or is it easier to kind of write music when you're with the other four members?
So I think like the way we've been doing it for the past two albums is more just like from home. Each person does their own thing, and especially since I live in Chicago, like it's the easiest way to go about it. But I think that really depends on the song. Like, if we're talking about this like super technical, proggy, chaotic song, I think it's definitely best for me to sit down at home, you know, and work on the vocals. But, you know, there's been parts like, and this especially happened on I Have Providence because I had to songwrite, you know, without my computer and, you know, being able to do my demos and all that. So there were a lot of like moments where the guys were playing the songs in the jam space and I was like getting ideas in the moment. But I think it depends on the style of music. Like if we were more of like a rock and roll band, like groove based and whatever, I could just be like, hey, let's play some new tracks in the studio and I'll like improvise over it, you know. And I've actually done that in the past. Like on Eye of Providence, we have this song, As Above, So Below, and there's this whole mid-section that I had the lyrics for, but I had like no vocal melodies whatsoever, and I just went into the studio and did the first thing that came to mind, you know. It was kind of like an improv. So I think it does work for certain songs and certain genres, but then when we're approaching like more fast-paced, chaotic parts where everyone's kind of like playing on 10, it might be better to just sit down with the part, you know, at home.
Yeah. I feel like, especially because your music is both very atmospheric and very technical, it's almost like each song has like a new approach and it has like its own methods of approaching it. Yeah. And the final question I wanted to ask you is my favorite question to ask every artist because it's always the hardest question that I ask everybody. How do you know when a song is done? Because I've noticed that like a song like In Vertigo is 5 minutes long, but Burn It All Down is 3.5 minutes, and then like Mr. Cold is like less than 5 minutes. How do you know this is done? We don't need to work on it anymore.
Okay, that is an interesting question. I mean, like I said, did I say this? I'm not sure, but after I do like the demo vocals at home and I send the track back, sometimes, in some cases, the band will be like, hey, I really like what you did, but like now that you added the vocals here, we kind of want to tweak like the structure of a song. So like either make a part longer because they really liked it, or like bring back the chorus, or, you know, add a new riff somewhere and stuff like that. And it's very interesting that like, you know, you need the vocals on a song to be able to know if it's like solid or if it needs something more. I really think, you know, at the end of the day, I think vocals are like the last component and the most important component that can like make or break a song. And I'm like also like a harmony junkie, so to me a song is not complete unless like I add the harmonies that are in my head. Otherwise, you know, if you just have like one vocal track, it's like not interesting to me at all.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, you know, just like these little little details in the background, you know, layering with like either like another guitar layer or this like synthy thing maybe sometimes, or like effects or vocals or whatever. These little things that like take the song from like 95% and they bring it to like 100%, and you're like, okay, this is a solid song now. Like, we're done.
Okay. I think you answered that better than any musician I've ever asked that to. Excellent work.
Thank you.
The best answer I've ever gotten was when I get the final mix back. I don't know what else to say.
That's a very like what do you call it? Literal response.
Hey,
like, oh, that's done.
Yeah.
Can't do anything about it.
Hey, makes sense. I mean, when it's done, it's done. So before we go, I'd like to thank you so much for your time today. You know, it's great to be able to talk, being that the new Tool album is out today. I doubt anybody else was answering their phone. But is there just...
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Orphans is scheduled to come out September 20th. Can we just be expecting to see The Agonist on the road anytime soon, or anything else you would like to promote?
Yes. I mean, we have the Europe tour coming up in the fall, but then, like, we're really gearing up and trying to get stuff for 2020, hopefully a North America tour, early in the year. So, you know, our goal for this album is to promote it as much as possible, and, like, we've been doing that with our social media, and we have 2 singles out already. There's going to be more singles, like, more music videos for people to expect, and, we're just, like, anxious to hit the road and play the songs for everyone live, and hoping that it gets, like, the response that it deserves.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm sure it will. It sounded awesome.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Vicky. Everybody, we are here with Vicky of The Agonist. Orphans out on September 20th. Pick that up. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we'll see you next time.